Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sunil Rajguru, editor of Dataquest and PCQuest magazines, and your host for today's live webinar. A warm welcome to you all, and thank you for joining us for our discussion today around securing the distributed enterprise powered by InfiNxt SDWAN. We will have a presentation by and a fireside chat with Mohit Chandra Saxena, CTO Infinity Labs Limited. Finally, we will have an audience Q&A. So please be ready with your questions. So now on to the opening note. So the theme is digital transformation. When I had entered this industry, digital transformation seemed almost like a cliche, right? And everyone said that, "Well, what is this digital transformation, etc., etc." But I think digital transformation has already happened, because if you see the last 2 years of pandemic, if it has done one thing, it has forced every enterprise, every small business to undergo digital transformation. I would say that even digital transformation has occurred at an individual level. So I think we should now be talking of complete digital transformation. So if you look at your screen, there's a quote by Jeff Bezos. So he talked of, the volatility. I mean, they entered the market in the 90s and they have seen so many changes. And he also talks that, there's no other way to reinvent yourself. And you have to keep going forward, agility and all those things. So, he was spot on. And even after 20, 30 years, we are all following the same path. So anyway, as I said, I'm your host for the day, Sunil Rajguru. I'm editor of Dataquest and PCQuest, and you can get in touch with us in case you have any problems. Now, again, as I said, one of the main themes was COVID. As I keep saying, that a tragedy occurred, yes, but we came out of it. And we did that by technology. And if the technology had a certain amount of velocity, then it has led to acceleration. So one thing that has happened is it has transformed every industry. Now, when we talk of digital transformation, each and every, it is not just IT, corporate, and the enterprise and the SMB. Even something like education, which was static, has changed. So we have to realize that the world has changed forever. And I would like to think that we are out of COVID now, and we are entering a phase of consolidation. So therefore, I think we have to start making our long-term strategies, no longer short-term ad hoc basis. We have to go forward. And I think the term, the new normal, doesn't make any sense anymore. It is the normal. The world that we are living in has changed, and we can only go forward. Now, what is the hallmark of the world? Of course, there are 100 things you can talk about, but I'd just say it is a connected global network. That's it. Now everything is connected. Before, if you remember, there were some industries which were online, some industries were connected, and some remained offline of the grid. Now there is no such thing as offline. Offline is just something you may go and spend time with your family, you may spend time in the park. That's offline. When it comes to business, everything is online. And to give you the scale, if you look at like the data centers, we think of data centers. There was a time when you would rarely see a data center. I don't know how many of you know there are millions of data centers today. Again, like when the desktop came, maybe a few 100 million people had the desktop. But now if you combine our devices, they're in the terms of billions. And after billion, we get trillions. So you'll be surprised to know that trillions of GBs of data are exchanged every day. So today we live in a world where millions of data centers are used by billions of devices to transfer trillions of GBs of data each and every day. So that's it. So that's what I'm saying. We are in this new world, and you have to be in this new world. And if you're an enterprise, doesn't matter whether you're Amazon, you're a large enterprise, or an SMB, you have entered this world. You cannot turn back, and you have to make the most of it. And one thing is, you have to be cloud ready. That's it. If you have to be an enterprise today, you have to be on the cloud. It may be like hybrid cloud, multi-cloud, a lot of members, the jargon is there, but you have to be cloud ready. And here's another thing: this networked and cloud world has to be simple, it has to be secure, it has to be flexible, and it has to be cost effective. Basically, you want everything. It's tough, but we require simplicity, security, flexibility, and economy. So we have to keep modernizing and keep updating, and we have to keep embracing newer technologies like 5G. There's no shortage of technologies. I mentioned 5G because that's around the corner. And of course, you need a continuous bandwidth. It has to be a high bandwidth and secure, because it is not only your data loads, but video collaboration, everything is there. So I think we should embrace this world, optimize it, and move on. So, as I said, we're from Dataquest. So this is the latest issue of Dataquest, which has just hit the stands. And it would be a good idea to take a look at it, maybe on the stands or online. So anyway, thank you for this. So if you have any questions, then you can mail me on this ID. And of course, we look forward to your questions throughout this webinar. So with that, I would like to hand over the stage to Mohit Chandra Saxena, CTO, Infinity Labs, for his presentation. Over to you, Mohit.
Thanks, Sunil. Thanks a lot for this introduction and, of course, setting the tone for today's session. Without much ado, I'll try to share my screen now and start off a quick presentation on securing the distributed enterprise. And the agenda for today's session is here. So we'll be discussing on the business trends, what exactly are the challenges with which most of the enterprises are facing in today's distributed world, where we have multiple offices, chain of offices, multiple data centers, multiple hubs, and of course the private and the public clouds, the multi-cloud strategies, and all that stuff. Then we'll talk about SD-WAN, what exactly SD-WAN means, and how does it benefits the distributed enterprise, and what role does it play in securing the distributed enterprises. Then we'll discuss on the SD-WAN components, the major components of SD-WAN, and of course followed by the benefits and features. And then we'll have a quick poll, and I'll try to give a look and feel of InfiNix SD-WAN solution, and how does that fulfills most of the discussed challenges or the requirements in the presentation. And of course we'll then have a Q&A session. So starting with the business trends. So connectivity has become the major lifeline. Means Sunil spoke about the COVID situation, and one thing which COVID pandemic has taught us is the importance of reliable, secure, and flexible connectivity. Means we all used to work from home, from wherever we are, and we were afraid of, scared of going out of our places and all the communication, all the business transactions, how important, how critical they were all being handled over the internet. And the moment we had a small internet glitch, we were all panicking. So that was the situation, and that is the situation more or less as of today as well. So we have the connectivity, which has become the major lifeline. We have the security aspects related to the connectivity, which have become a bit of challenge, because there are more cyber attacks which are happening, more malwares which are there in the cyberspace, and of course more vulnerabilities which are there to get access to our credentials, to our data. Then of course mobility is another important factor which is very important for business, and the facility to add remote and mobile employees to the enterprise work, means work from anywhere has become a kind of normal now. And of course the multi-cloud strategy which we spoke about. So if I have to define this lifeline, which we call the communication, so there are three adjectives which would define the needs of any business, and those three adjectives is: the communication has to be the communication solution, or the transport has to be reliable, it has to be secure, and of course it has to be flexible. So reliability means we should have bingo uptime, and secure means, of course, it should protect us from various threats around the cyberspace, and of course it should be flexible enough for configurations, for setting it up, and of course for getting new features, and of course the ease of use. So what exactly has this digital transformation and brought in to the business, and what exactly are the requirements which the today's business is having? So first and foremost is the speed and throughput. So every business enterprise is looking for better speed and better throughput to have capability to support real-time data exchange. And of course, the hybrid cloud environment is another business requirement, because as we know, most of the enterprises are moving towards the cloud, and some are creating the clouds within their own offices, within their own data centers for their intranet applications. That is called like a private cloud, which the enterprise only has access to. However, there is the concept of this infrastructure as a service, software as a service, like there are multiple software suites which are available on public cloud, and the organizations are moving towards pay-as-you-go kind of solutions. Like Office 365 is one of the examples where the whole of the Office suite is hosted on a public cloud, and of course a combination of public and private. So some of the applications might be still using the private cloud while the others use the public cloud. So that becomes a hybrid cloud kind of environment. And of course, security plays a major role, that when you are connecting from your home, your office, to the cloud, or to your private cloud, or somewhere else, how secure your communication is. Uptime and reliability plays again a very important role, where if you're not getting the uptime, if your internet is out and you're at home, then whole of the application stack on which the business runs is out of your reach. Then, of course, the prioritization of critical applications is another important requirement which has come up during the last couple of years, where if the whole, I would say, multiple family members are using, the whole of home is using a single internet connection, where the kids are using some Microsoft team meetings, or maybe Zoom meetings for their online classes, while the office goers are on some other meetings, or using a SAP application suite for business transactions, and other family members might be using some videos, streaming Netflix and all that stuff. So how do we prioritize the applications, and that too on a certain time period? Suppose if it is the office hours, then how the digital meeting applications get more priority, where the voice and video gets more priority, and during the off business hours, maybe we can have the other video streaming services like Netflix and all get the priority. So this also has become one of the major requirements of the household as well as of the business. Then last but not the least is the cost optimization on the transport infrastructure, which has become a major requirement. And most of the time this becomes one of the top three requirements for network transformation, that everybody wants to reduce cost and still want to have good performance on the applications. Then we'll talk about some existing WAN challenges. So what exactly is the existing WAN? So when we say WAN, WAN stands for Wide Area Network. And if we go to Wikipedia and search for WAN, what we are going to get is a definition which talks about a network which spans across a few kilometers, or possibly between the cities or between the countries. So WAN connections are those connections which make our autonomous systems, or our entities, whether it's one small office can be one entity, or one branch office could be one entity, or one home can be one entity, and we call an entity. So this WAN connection makes our entities talk to the world outside, or possibly talk to some other entities outside. So if it is going towards the public internet, then it can be an internet connection. And if it is privately going to some other offices or some other units where we need to communicate to, then it becomes a private WAN, which sometimes we call MPLS in the traditional terms, where or we can have a point-to-point fiber, or a point-to-point network where we have um, dedicated leased circuits, which are of course very costly. So these are the examples of traditional WAN, and the main challenges which these traditional WANs pose are limited application visibility. So we do not know what all applications are consuming the bandwidth on our WAN. Then of course the manual change management. So if you have like 20 offices within the country, and if you want to manage them, then of course there has to be distributed network management teams across all the offices, and there are a lot of manual changes which are required whenever you have to introduce any new service, or make any new communication work over the existing WAN. Suppose you're running MPLS, and if there is a requirement to integrate another department within your office, then you have to make a lot of changes. You have to get your network admins make a lot of changes on the existing routers, go to the CLI, put some configurations there, and of course call your ISP to get the configurations done and affected over the ISP network. And finally, in a few days' time, you get a new service running on these kind of traditional WANs. Then, of course, they are decentralized networks. So if you're running a heterogeneous network at various offices, of course, you need to have different skilled manpower. Like if one of your office is running vendor X as the routing vendor, and the other office is running one vendor Y as the routing and switching vendor, then you need to have distributed manpower with skill sets on vendor X on office 1 and on vendor Y on office 2. Then, of course, fragmented security is another challenge, where since everything is manual, so you might be having the firewalls situated at various offices, but the policies are not centralized. So it's like, at some places you might be running some security policy while other office might be missing that, and vice versa. Then suboptimal bandwidth utilization. This is another important thing which is there. That suboptimal bandwidth utilization means if there are multiple applications the users are using, you do not know which application is hogging the bandwidth, and which application is getting starved. And you might have multiple circuits running within multiple offices. Maybe some of the circuits are lying idle while the others are getting overutilized, and you're facing the application performance problems. Then, of course, there is no application-based routing. So it's like normal L3 routing, which most of the routers do, which do not have any way to have the routing be intelligent enough to adapt itself for the applications. Like suppose I would want to have suppose this meeting, this online meeting video and voice to travel through a particular link. It should always be routed through a particular link which is having the best statistics, the best matrices over the last couple of months. So those kind of facilities are not available in the existing WAN, be it MPLS or dark fiber kind of links. Now, with that in mind, we'll discuss a little bit about what SDN and what SD-WAN is all about. So when we talk about software-defined networks, that is SDN, the concept started almost a decade back, and the main fundamental of SDN is to separate the data plane from the control plane. So what exactly does it mean? So the meaning is that why to overload the data processing routers with lot of intelligence on the choice of link, the choice of path, the management of network, the responding to the health matrices request from SNMP and all that stuff. So what SDN has done is it has kind of taken away the intelligence from these packet processing boxes to a central software, and then this software is now become the control plane, which is managing all the configurations, which is managing the behavior of these packet processing boxes, and it is also doing a central control. Now, these boxes, which are primarily for data processing, are doing their focused primary job, which is processing the packets. So they form the data plane, while the central controller, which has all the intelligence built in, forms the control plane. And that is what SDN is all about. Now, when we apply the SDN concept over the WAN network, we get SD-WAN. So SD-WAN is a distributed WAN network with a central control. So we'll talk more about it. We'll double click on what exactly SD-WAN is and how it matters, why to use SD-WAN. So when we double click on SD-WAN, what we see is the traditional networks without the SDN look something like what we have on the left pane of our slide. So we have the routers at the bottom layer, which are having the packet processing engines and of course the configurations on top of it. So each router would have their own way of CLI configurations. So if you are running 3 vendors, you would have 3 different kinds of CLIs for all 3 vendors, and you'll have to configure all 3 of them one by one serially. Then you would have to use a reporting and monitoring engine, which might be your NMS, which would be using SNMP to get all the statistics from these routers to tell you what is the health, how your network is performing, and things like that. And of course, you might end up using a lot of manual exercise in order to make these routers work, because none of them will have features like auto configuration, or kind of you just plug and play the boxes. So that is not going to happen. So it needs a lot of systematic change management with a lot of human efforts in order to make the network up. And of course, you need multiple set of softwares to make it work. Then towards the right hand side, what we have is the SDN network, SDN based network, which has the infrastructure layer, which is bunch of data processing units, which are the CPs, we call them customer premises equipments, analogous to the routers. Then we have the control layer, which has the network services, the crypto services, and we have the application layer, which is nothing but the controller, which has all your reporting, your threshold alerting, your SLA, your auto configuration changes, auto change management, everything under a single umbrella. So you need not to have manpower with multiple skill sets, and you need not to uh, go to each box to configure them, to manage them, and of course you are virtualizing the transport. So now there is no specific need to have a certain kind of transport to fuel your routers. So SD-WAN makes an overlay network which is intelligent enough to prioritize your applications, to give you single pane of glass, and for management, and of course the choice of WAN, the choice of transport. So now the transport becomes a general commodity stuff. So need not to have MPLS all the time. You can have broadband LTE, for example, as one of the transport for using as layer one, layer two, and you run the overlay networks on top of it, which gives you an immediate cost benefit. And of course, with the application prioritization and application based routing, you can still have good SLAs for your critical applications. Then, if we talk about generations of WAN, so we started with ATM, FR kind of WANs, and then slowly graduated to layer 2 based Ethernet networks, and then layer 3 based IP networks, and then MPLS, which is still prevalent in some pockets, and we call it the traditional WAN. And now the network of choice, means the technology of choice for WAN network, is SD-WAN. So what exactly are the differences in terms of latency, availability, and price is the fact that MPLS or the lease line network which were running are very good at latency, are very good at availability, but they are very, very expensive. However, the network which are like internet network, the broadband, which is the consumer, the retail kind of networks, which are very cheap, but the latency is unknown and the availability is low, means they can go down any time. And that is where SD-WAN plays a major role. It gives the best goodies of both the worlds, combines them, and presents them to the enterprise. So if I have to sum up the challenges of the traditional WAN, it's like they are rigid, because you have to always be dependent on multiple network engineers, your ISPs, for getting any new communication happen over the traditional WAN. They are decentralized. They have got decentralized management and consoles, so multiple devices, multiple consoles, multiple CLIs. Of course, they've got higher OPEX, so the running cost is very high. And of course, the lower bandwidth utilization, because you do not have that visibility of finding out what links are underutilized and how to utilize them optimally. Then, of course, the fragmented network security, as you do not have a central way to control the security overall in the overall enterprise. Isp dependency is another thing. For any change in your VRFs, any change in your network, you have to go to the ISP, and then they have their own SLAs and turnaround times. Then, of course, higher cost, and they are pretty complex. Now, we talk about the InfiNxt SD-WAN, how we deliver a Make in India SD-WAN. So this is, first of all, I want to tell you guys that the solution which we are going to discuss on the SD-WAN technology is 100% Make in India, coded in India, developed in India from the scratch, bottoms up. And this is how the architecture looks like for our SD-WAN. So the reason why I'm actually showing this architecture here is the fact that we are standardizing the SD-WAN architecture. We are contributing towards standardization of SD-WAN architecture, because what is happening in the industry is now, the router manufacturers, which were earlier manufacturing only routers, they kind of put some piece of software on their routers and they start calling them SD-WAN. Similar thing happens with the firewall manufacturers. Earlier, they used to manufacture firewalls, and now they are, routing all the traffic to a central kind of cloud, and they do something, I would say, policies on the cloud, and then they start calling their firewalls as SD-WAN. So there is no much of a standardization, and that is where we come in. We have developed our SD-WAN on a true SDN architecture, where the CPEs, which are the customer premises equipment, only uh, exchange the customer data with each other. So they do never send any customer data towards a cloud or towards our controller. Only the control plane traffic goes towards the controller, which comprises of the performance matrices, the health checks, and of course the intelligence which is derived from the controller. So the bottom layer is the customer premises equipment having a secure tunnel, which is labeled in yellow color, and there are some transport layer tunnels, SSL tunnels towards the controller, which are also secure, and they only carry the intelligence or the control traffic. Now the controller has the presentation layer, which is presented towards the user, where user has all the options to control the WAN. There is the configuration engine, an auth service, an analytics engine, crypto engine, and an API engine, which exposes open APIs and all the controller functionalities to the northbound systems. Then this is how our SD-WAN hardware looks like. So as it is made in India, it is kind of developed, designed for the Indian environment. So it's a very lightweight, small form factor box, which is IH100, and it has very less power consumption, around 10 to 12 watts. It's fanless architecture with heat sink on top, so that it can survive the Indian climate conditions pretty well. And there are no moving parts, so it's completely, fanless. There is no SSD, sorry, there is no spindle based hard drive. It's all based on SSD, so a flip-flop based storage. So since there are no moving parts, the mean time between failures is very, very high. So it has a very high shelf life. Then of course it has got all universal ports, so you can pick and choose how many ports you want to use as WAN, how many ports you want to choose as LAN. It's all software defined. Then of course there is an HDMI for the device management, and there are two USB ports which can be used for LTE dongles, and we can use LTE as the primary WAN as well for quick WAN deployments, where if an enterprise wants to have a quick turnaround time for a new office, so you just put a LTE dongle on our device, and boom, the device comes up, the branch is live and is in business. So that's the beauty of InfiNix SD-WAN. Then if we talk about ease of use, then we have a mobile-based zero-touch deployment. So what it means is there is a mobile application which is used to scan the QR code on the box, and within a few minutes of scanning this, it's a few minutes process, the box is in service. So the deployment costs are slashed down like anything, because you do not need a very skilled engineer in order to just use the mobile app and scan the QR code. That's what it takes to actually bring up the SD-WAN. Then of course the centralized user-friendly controller is one single pane of glass which manages everything for you. You need not to have separate NMS, EMS, blah blah blah. It's everything under the single controller. Then, of course, your network becomes transport agnostic. You can use broadband, you can use LTE, MPLS, lease line, anything. Of course, the network management becomes pretty easier, and there is automation in the policy creation in auto VPN. So your SD-WAN automatically detects its peer devices, creates the tunnel. So you need not to have 1 hour of juggling to, have the IPsec negotiations done on both the boxes and all that stuff. It's all taken care automatically, and of course, it's single console. Then we talk about the ease of operations. Sorry, okay, it's here. So we talk about ease of operations. So we have the performance via application aware routing. So we can give application priority for the critical applications. We have real-time visibility on matrices using streaming telemetry. This is the latest and greatest technology which we use in spite and rest of the competition still using SNMP for this network management, where they use a lot of CPU for for this network health probes, while we use streaming telemetry, which leaves the box with the CPU doing the actual packet processing. Then, of course, the role-based access, the log tracking, and the automatic software upgrades, remote software upgrades is another benefit which comes with the InfiNxt SD-WAN. And of course, the scalability and and support on hybrid and on-prem cloud controller. So our controller is very much scalable, as it's based on microservices, containerized microservices architecture. It runs on a Kubernetes cluster, and it can be placed on the public cloud, on the private cloud, within your data center, depending on the use case. Then, of course, the insights on path performance are available. We decide the best path for your application based on latency, hop count, jitter, MOS, and other matrices depending on the use case. Then we have open APIs for integration. And what exactly does that mean? That means we do not force our customers for a vendor lock-in. We provide RESTful interface on from our controller, which helps us to integrate with any northbound NMS, SMS gateways, healthcare applications, Google, SIEM solutions, payment gateways, or any controller of controller kind of architecture where you have a super controller which is controlling everything within your enterprise. So these are some of the use cases which we have implemented. So we'll discuss just a few of them. So we've supported wired and wireless connectivity. So I'm talking about bringing up the office immediately, very quickly on LTE-based solutions. Then we have replaced MPLS with dual internet links to cater to reliability and network performance, and of course slashing the cost by almost 1/6 or to 1/8 of what the cost was, operational cost was earlier. Then, of course, the traffic segmentation and application aware routing is another use case which we have deployed at multiple clients. Then live streaming of key KPIs, that is the streaming telemetry, which gives you the KPIs every second, vis-a-vis what used to happen in SNMP, where each KPI you had to wait for 15 minutes to actually get the KPIs. Then, of course, we have the bundled centralized controller, which is on-prem as well as can be on multi-tenancy basis available on public cloud. Then we have also deployed this use case where the expenses on highly skilled CLI resources were reduced, as SD-WAN is all UI based. Then the entire backhaul traffic is secure using a lightweight auto-established tunnel. So this is another use case where multiple branches of an enterprise backhauled all their internet traffic to their central hub site, and there was a scrubbing mechanism available at the central hub site from where the data was scrubbed and then sent to the internet. Then, of course, the cost reduction based on the zero-touch provisioning, and geo-tagging is another use case where the moment you deploy a site using our mobile app, the site also gets tagged on a geo map, so you have the location, the lat long for the site available on the geo map as well. So you can map your enterprise while deploying it in a few minutes. So with this, I'll take a pause and to just what we discussed till now. Based on that, we have some audience poll where we have some two questions which we're going to ask, and we request your inputs here. So based on that, we will take the session forward. So yeah, so the first question which is here is, what are challenges associated with SD-WAN adoption? So we have people joining in from various backgrounds, from various kind of enterprises. So please do help us answer this. Whether it is the cost concerns, whether it's the skill required to implement or manage, or the concerns about interoperability with existing WANs, or the resistance from within the IT, and or any others, please specify it. So that's the first question. Please take your time, and I think we have another one post this. Okay, so we have.
Can you see the screen?
Yes. So we have
Okay.
38% of the audience going with the cost concerns as the answer. 50% is the skill required to implement, manage. Another 50%. How this can be?
No, Mohit, this is because they can vote what they want. Like they're interested in cost and skill. They're interested in.
Okay. Okay. Understood. Understood.
So basically, what I see, it's everything what you have mentioned is important for them. All
Sure.
these are issues.
Okay. That's
So
interesting.
there are multiple challenges. Basically, that is what the audience is trying to tell us.
Sure. Sure. Okay, so let's have the other question as well. Okay, so the other one is, what are the top two greatest pain areas when it comes to the wide area network? And the options are the time it takes to provision connectivity from carriers or ISPs, then the cost of private circuits, lack of visibility, or it's ensuring performance or QoS or remote branches connections, or it's provisioning new or remote branch offices. So it's time which takes to actually bootstrap a new office or new connectivity for a new office. Okay, so do we have the answers? Oh, okay, here we
Here
go. So
also, I think here also it is. I think challenges and pains are plenty, I think. So maybe you can throw light on that. Yeah.
okay, okay, that's interesting. We'll keep a note of it. Yeah. So moving ahead, this is the last section of the presentation. I'll just give some look and feel of the Infinix solution, how it looks like. So I was talking about tagging your enterprise over geo map. So here you can see that the sites which are uh, provisioned using the mobile app. We also have captured their geo coordinates using the Google API, and they are available on a geo map. So this is the front page of our SD-WAN controller, how it looks like, where you see all your sites, your devices, what is up, what is down, how many links up, how many links down, all that stuff. Then this is the look of the devices, whether your VPNs are up, whether the controller is reachable, what's the status of each of the sites, each of the devices. Then these are the statuses of various interfaces, and they are all refreshed in real time, that what interfaces are up, what links are down on a particular site. Then this is a glimpse of real-time streaming telemetry. It works like a car dashboard. So whatever happens at the device is immediately, refreshed at the controller level, and you get to know the exact statistics, the performance matrices all the time without any delays. This is the WAN link utilization. You can get a report out of it, that what was your WAN SLA, which ISP performed better, which ISP didn't perform up to the mark. And of course, this is the tunnel statuses, where you have multiple overlay tunnels, and what's the traffic running on tunnels. Then this is the link performance measure, where you get the latency, the hop count in order to reach a particular application. This example shows the reachability to Google DNS, and what all hops it takes from a particular link on ETH0 to reach there, and what is the latency on per hop, what is the jitter on per hop. So we can control the per hop behavior with using a separate link altogether. Then these are the troubleshooting tools. So from the central controller, you can make use of these troubleshooting tools to go to any of the site and make a packet capture, ping trace, MTRs, speed test, CP services, all those kind of troubleshooting you can do from a central place, from a central controller, and need not to always dispatch an engineer to the site. And that is all from my side in terms of SD-WAN as a technology, how it impacts the business, and a glimpse of Infinix Make in India SD-WAN solution. So now I'll hand it over to Mr. Rajguru again. So Mr. Rajguru, over to you.
Yeah, so actually, Mohit, that was pretty comprehensive, and I think the audience would have like got a lot of insight about it. But I think we can still go forward. Like if you look at the audience polls, there were multiple challenges, and one thing I got from the audience polls, despite everything, multiple challenges and multiple pains continue.
Yeah.
So yeah, so basically it would be good if we had like a few follow-up questions so the audience can be more clear about it. So you know what, I'll just start with something basic. Why is
Sure.
it important for any enterprise to move to SD-WAN technology? What are the benefits that will accrue immediately to the enterprise? Because when the people want quick returns, the moment they get it, they want to immediately move on.
Sure. So if any enterprise, decides to embrace SD-WAN, then the quick benefits, which are like no-brainer, which can be immediately reaped out of this SD-WAN deployment, are like, first of all, there is an immediate cost reduction. So if an enterprise is already running on multiple MPLS kind of circuits, so there is an immediate cost reduction where they can go away, they can move away from MPLS to broadband kind of circuits and still ensure the application performance with various of the technologies associated with the solution. Then of course ease of management is another benefit which they get. So earlier they must be using multiple skill sets in order to manage their routers, their switches. And now with SD-WAN coming in the picture, there is a central controller which is all UI based. So the management becomes pretty easy. Then future proofing is another benefit that most of the routing vendors they come up with some variants of the appliances which go out of support, out of sales every 3-4 years, and then there is again need to refresh. There is technology refresh which comes in, which also mandates the enterprise to go with a new hardware altogether. So with SD-WAN, the future proofing is another benefit which comes in, as with SD-WAN you get to the general purpose hardware, and it's only the software patches which keeps on coming in, which you can kind of get from the support services. Then last but not the least, you are moving a step ahead in your journey towards embracing the multi-cloud kind of environment, which is also one of the objectives of digitization. So those are the quick benefits which an enterprise gets immediately after getting to deploy SD-WAN.
Yeah. So I think this future proofing sounds quite good, because one thing the pandemic has taught, that you have to future proof yourself no matter what. So, and continuing in your view, what are the three major factors an enterprise should consider when evaluating an SD-WAN solution?
Yeah, this is a very good question. I think from the enterprise point of view, the ease of deployment should be the first primary, I would say, point which the enterprise should look at. Because if it takes a lot of time to deploy, the SD-WANs, then time is money, and the SD-WANs should be very quick to deploy, like the one which I mentioned here as Infinix. So our Infinix solution has a mobile app, so there is no specific, I would say, skill set which is required in order to bootstrap the solution. It's like, you just have the solution, you scan the QR code, put the cable in, and boom, the solution starts working. Then, of course, the second very important point is the general purpose hardware. So we still have some of the vendors in the market who claim to be SD-WAN, and they come with their own custom ASIC, their appliance-based solutions. So SD-WAN should move towards general purpose x86 kind of hardwares, which are generally available, and you also have that trust that whatever the technology enhancements would come, they would come in terms of, in the form of the softwares, and not just hardware refresh every year. Then the last point would be about the agility of the company to develop new features, to listen to the customers, and kind of the turnaround time which the company takes. I would call it a feature velocity as well. Because in some of the cases, what we generally see is the customers' voices get unheard. Means if the customer comes up with a different kind of ask in terms of feature request and all, so the companies take year after year in order to deliver that. And till that time, the whole essence of that feature is gone. So those are the three most important points I would say an enterprise should look at when evaluating any SD-WAN.
Yeah, so I guess all three are important, but agility sounds like more important in today's day and age. So anyway, coming to a few specific questions now, what is the significance of general purpose compute based CPE?
Yes, so we have been discussing about this general purpose hardware. So it matters a lot. Reason being, general purpose hardware is the same hardware which is used by our computers, be it a MacBook, be it a Dell computer or an HP computer. So it's the Intel architecture which is available throughout, tried, tested, dusted. So there is no specific stuff which is coming in terms of the hardware complexities. And also you have a trust that this hardware can be used as a universal CP for hosting any other application as well. Because tomorrow, if you want to, host any VM on top of that hardware, so if it's a custom built hardware, then forget it. It means nobody is going to give even the access to, to root the hardware, and there is no way you can host, any other software on top of it. And of course, the second point, which we discussed previously as well, that gives the future proofing concept that you will only need to upgrade the hardware when it comes to the point when you are your throughput capacity, throughput needs are kind of gone up, and then you can upgrade. But otherwise, just for the technology change, you need not to upgrade the hardware.
Okay. Then another thing is, how can an enterprise mitigate vendor lock-in scenarios while deploying SD-WAN? That's also important.
Yes. So the first one is the custom ASIC versus general purpose hardware. That is the first point, and we have discussed that. Then the second point is open API infrastructure. So an SD-WAN vendor should be providing some kind of RESTful interface towards the northbound side so that the SD-WAN solution can talk to other elements within the ecosystem. Otherwise, you are getting into a vendor lock-in situation where you cannot have any other boxes stay in your network alive. Then the third point would be on the IETF standardized protocols. So the SD-WAN should not be using proprietary stuff all the time, which is the case with some of the vendors, because the moment you get into the proprietary stuff, it becomes really difficult to revisit your decision.
Okay. So, and also, like you're talking of the Infinix solution. So how can the Infinix solution ensure better security on the transport layer as compared to, say, other SD-WAN solutions?
Sure. So most of the SD-WANs use the generic IPsec, which is using either triple DES MD5 kind of encryption algorithms for securing the data. However, SD-WAN with InfiNxt uses the normal IPsec, which is like for for the sake of interoperability with other devices. We also have our InfiNxt VPN, which is again standard based, but it uses better encryption algorithms like Poly 1305 and Chacha 20 with 4096 length of encryption keys to secure the data traffic for the users. Also, we have a partnership with Palo Alto where we can have a Palo Alto VM running on top of our InfiNxt SD-WAN CP, as we are using general purpose hardware. So we can have VMs of any third party also hosted within our solution. So we can also integrate, the Palo Alto security with our SD-WAN. So that is how we are much ahead in terms of security when it comes to on transport layer or towards the firewalling.
Yeah, then I think maybe we have time for one last question. What is the significance of the MII communication equipment? What all factors should be considered while evaluating an MII SD-WAN?
Sure. So in the current situation, means we have all seen what has happened between Ukraine and Russia, and our government, initiated this Make in India program in 2014 onwards, and we, as an Indian enterprise, take pride in announcing, in telling everybody that our solution is born in India, for India, and of course for the world. And 2-3 main points which should be considered while evaluating a Make in India SD-WAN is whether the software is 100% written within India, whether it's a class 1 product or a class 2 Make in India product, which category the product falls in. Class 1 is the product where more than 50% of the value addition is done in India, while class 2 are the products where just 20% or something like that is done within India, and rest is from abroad. So that is one of the considerations. Then whether the R&D centers, the support centers, the hardware, they are all being developed and designed in India, whether the company has the IP for the technology within the country, or the technology is being transferred from somewhere else. So those are some of the major points which should be considered while evaluating any SD-WAN software. And of course, as Indians, means I would encourage, we should all take pride in in spending for a product which is developed in India for the country.
Yeah. So I think before we go, maybe we can just take one audience question. They're asking whether 5G will have any impact on this whole SD-WAN ecosystem. So.
Okay, so when we say, it's a wonderful question, first of all, thank you for asking. When we say SD-WAN virtualizes the transport fabric, so we mean that it doesn't matter now what kind of transport will be used for your connectivity needs. So SD-WAN can modulate over any kind of transport, be it broadband, be it LTE, be it MPLS, be it 5G. So the only good part about 5G would be that the LTE, which we are talking about as of today, gives us a network performance or throughput performances of around 2 to 4 Mbps, or sometimes it degrades also depending on the network coverage scenarios. When the 5G will come in the market, then this wireless transport will be much more stronger, I would say. And the magic which InfiNxt SD-WAN does with this kind of wireless transports will even become, even will be strengthened, because nowadays sometimes what happens is when you're running only on LTE, then sometimes there are chances that the signal strength is dipping and you might have some packet losses. With 5G, this whole system of just open the box, put the 5G dongle or put the 5G SIM and start your business will become a kind of 100% reality.
Okay. So on that note, Mohit, I'd like to thank you for giving a very insightful presentation and answering all those questions with great clarity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being wonderful audience, and thank you, Mr. Sunil. It was pleasure having this discussion with you. Thank you very much.
So I'd like to thank the audience on behalf of Dataquest and Infinity Labs Limited. I would like to thank all the participants today for joining this webinar. We hope you found it useful. And mainly, don't forget to fill in the feedback form on your way out. Have a great evening. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.